All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down the latest news in the maze that is U.S. immigration. And believe it or not, this March, we've actually got some good news.
And hey, I get it. Good news in U.S. immigration, is that even a thing? Well, amidst all the usual challenges, this month actually brought some pretty significant developments. We're talking about some positive shifts for a lot of people caught in the system.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at some real progress for visa applicants, which is a key administrative update. Then, we're going to talk about new protections for people in detention coming from the courts. And finally, there's been a major leadership change that you definitely need to know about.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the Visa Bulletin. Now, if you're in the green card waiting game, you know this document is everything. It's the monthly report that basically dictates your entire timeline. And March brought some really welcome news.
You know, for so many people, the absolute worst part of this whole process is just the waiting, right? It can feel endless, stretching on for months, sometimes years, with almost no clue when you'll get to move forward.
And this whole waiting game, it all comes down to something called your priority date. Honestly, the best way to think about it is that it's the exact moment you got your ticket and secured your spot in a very, very long line. Everything hinges on when that date becomes current.
Okay, so here is the big deal for March. You've got to keep your eye on two different dates. There's the final action date. That's kind of like the finish line, when your green card can actually get approved. But then there's this other one, the dates for filing chart, which almost always has earlier, more generous dates. And here's the great news. For March, USCIS said, yep, you can use that better earlier chart. So what does this actually mean for you? Well, if you're already here in the U.S., it means you can file your final adjustment of status paperwork. That's the whole shebang to get your green card, way sooner than expected. This gets your application in the door and gets the ball rolling. It is a huge advantage. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the courts. There have been two recent rulings that are making a real difference when it comes to legal protections for immigrants in detention. So check this out. A federal judge came out with this incredibly direct ruling, calling the practice of sending detainees to countries that aren't their home country unlawful and illegal. I mean, you can't get much clearer than that. This takes aim at a policy that's been really controversial. What the court is doing here is basically putting a stop to a really troubling practice. We were hearing stories about, say, people from India being sent to detention centers in El Salvador. This ruling says, nope, you can't do that anymore, unless there's some very clear legal justification for it.
And that's not all. In another really important decision, a different court reaffirmed a core principle. You can't just hold people in detention forever without giving them a chance to ask for bond. This is a big pushback against this trend of indefinite detention while cases just drag on.
So how does someone even get bond? What are the judges looking for? Well, the court actually laid out the key factors. They want to see things that show stability, right? So strong family ties here in the U.S., a pending immigration case, a clean criminal record, and of course, proof that you're not a flight risk and you'll actually show up for your future court dates. Okay, and for our final update, let's turn to politics. There has been a major shakeup at the very top of the Department of Homeland Security. That's the agency in charge of all immigration enforcement. So let's walk through what happened. On March 5th, President Trump fired the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, whose time in that role was really defined by some very aggressive immigration policies. And in her place, Senator Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma has been nominated. Now, what does this mean? It could signal a big shift, but honestly, what that shift looks like is the million-dollar question right now. Everyone's watching to see how his approach will be different. It's a huge change at the cabinet level. Okay, so we've looked at an update from the administrative side, two from the courts, and a big one from the political world. So what does it all mean? How do we connect these dots? What's the real takeaway here? Well, to put it simply, we're seeing important movement on three totally different fronts, all at once. You've got the administrative progress with the Visa Bulletin making things faster, new legal safeguards for detainees coming from the courts, and a major political shift happening at DHS. And this really gets to the heart of it, right? The U.S. immigration system is not some static, unchanging thing. It's constantly in motion. It's being reshaped by new policies, court cases, and political changes every single day. And these updates show that even something that sounds like a small, technical tweak can have a massive, life-altering impact on thousands and thousands of people. So the best thing you can do is stay informed, because this landscape is always changing. And all of these recent updates, from the courthouse to the White House, they leave us with this one big question looking forward. Are these just small, isolated shifts, or are we seeing the very first building blocks of a much larger, more fundamental reform? Only time will tell.